believe that since ancient times, that the doula and the midwife have been really one and the same. As far as a death midwife, like birth doulas, I see myself on the other end of our continuum. I personally believe that we come in love, and I'm an advocate for why not leave in love? Why not leave in the most beautiful way possible? Are you familiar with the difference between palliative and hospice care? Palliative care can include hospice services, such as, social workers, chaplains, hospice nurses, at the same time. Life-saving procedures or life-prolonging procedures can still continue, such as a form of chemotherapy. And I have a friend who's chosen that. He was a veteran on a VA wing that was known as palliative care wing. He practically lived there and was receiving chemo the whole time. But there was a point at which he knew his body simply couldn't take anymore. And he moved to the next stage, which was hospice care. So as I understand it, hospice, there's no life-sustaining treatment happening conjunctly, whereas in palliative care, it is.
What is the unique role a midwife or a doula plays that the others don't?
I see us as adjuncts to hospice and adjuncts to end-of-life care professions as a whole. So as an adjunct, I know that we're newer in this century, and there's been this profound rise, I believe, not only because of the pandemic, but I think we're just waking up about possibilities being different. What I have to offer is I'm a partner, but a non-medical partner in support of the mental, emotional, and spiritual life of the family and the patient. I wind up as an advisor, but also a non-judgmental partner for the family. That's where I'd like to stand in all of this. And I think that's where doulas stand, is the non-medical adjunct partner or companion in whatever way they most need. And that could be something as simple as sitting for an hour while somebody takes a nap, or it could be making phone calls on behalf of the family, or it could be as a liaison between family members who sadly don't even speak to each other. End-of-life doulas can do that, but also we understand the stages of death and dying. So although no one really knows, and what's recognizable now can change in a heartbeat, but we are schooled in what to expect. And so for people who've never seen death before or don't really know what dying looks like, it can be, for a family member, very scary, very frightening, and intimidating, and painful beyond words. So when you have someone with experience who's experienced in death, it takes the mystery out and just brings light.
How has your perspective changed on death and dying?
I really discovered how much I appreciate and how much I don't know about the whole process of being in your end stages of life. I think it's highly underrated. I think we think of it as, oh, well, it's over, it's the end. And my biggest misconception is end of life work is so full of life itself. I believe it is the essence. I've come to learn that birth and death are the essence of the most profound stages of who we can be.
Can you generalize your work, or is it very individualized to the family? What does it typically look like?
It's very individualized. I've been told I have a very peaceful presence, as fraught with difficulty, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual difficulty as family dynamics can be. I think when you or someone you know is faced with that life-limiting illness, the reactions are all over the place. And so to be able to listen, just listen and process with rather than process for. I don't ever want to pretend to tell somebody, this is the solution, this is what you need to be doing. I can recommend, I can suggest, but my whole purpose is to go where I'm called for a family or an individual and simply listen for what their needs are. Now, it could be different in that there may be a lot of family present or no family present at all. And what I have been blessed with was very surprising to me was that I've been called to support families or individuals in the end stages of life where those families have very complicated or very difficult family dynamics. And I suppose that over my lifetime, it's one thing I've witnessed quite a bit of is complicated family dynamics of friends and family. And so just my background and my experience led me to see that there is no difficulty in love if you are able to stand back and say, first, I want to approach this without judgment, not judging all the players in making decisions about what's best for their loved one. I think I've learned how to ask the right questions. It's not so much having all the answers, it's learning how to ask the right questions, leading the patient or the family in their own direction that works best for them.
How long does your relationship last with the patient, the family?
That has to do with working in partnership, I think, with the medical community, in that Western medicine is traditionally about looking for what other treatments are there, what else is there, what more can we do, and going through a catalog of treatments. And at the same time, hospice is about recognizing or eliminating a struggle or a painful or eliminating, I would say, a questionable existence where there is no quality of life for the person. My associations have lasted anywhere from 3 weeks with a client to 3 months. Right now, I'm in my 3rd year with a client. That in itself is, I think, full of its own difficulties, and it's what I would prefer we didn't see, but it happens. And I will say this is a big myth about hospice, that once you go in, oh well, I don't want to go because then I'll die. Hospice really is about living. So I find the earlier I can be with a family, that, well, I have so much, there's so much for end of life doulas to offer, from, as you know, the legacy piece, the planning of the stages, the planning of the quality of life you'd like to have, the life stories that can be written on film or in digital form.
Can you explain what a death cafe is?
The Death Cafe really was founded in 2011 by John Underwood in Hackney, East London. And it grew in England and then Europe. And it was where people would just meet in cafes and have tea and crumpets and cookies and more tea or coffee, and then talk about death in a non-judgmental way that would allow for differences of opinion, different views about death and dying to come forward, and yet without judgment and without specific teaching elements to it, where in a death cafe someone would say, well, this is what you need to do. You can suggest. However, death cafe isn't about recommending one path over another when it comes to life or death. Today, I read that there are over 7,600 death cafe groups in this country. A number of them stopped. Many more went online and became virtual death cafes. That's what I'm actually doing now. So once a month, at the end of the month, I meet with a particular group that I just fell in love with. And I love the 2 facilitators of that group. And what I also love about it for me personally is meeting people from all over the country and all over the world who are doing this work. It broadens my perspective. And in death cafes, the subject matter can vary. It's not a grief support group, but they bring professionals from every walk of life and non-professionals and students. And I've even seen some children attend, as you know, to enlighten each other and share resources. I've gotten so many wonderful resources suggested through attending a virtual Death Cafe once a month, and I've gotten very fond of some of the people in it and have made several buddies along the way through Death Cafe. Also, what I've noticed is that there are so many wonderful books that you can draw from. And many now are being written for caregivers and those in transition. So, bookshop.org, I love, and some of the other booksellers online or Barnes and Noble in your community. And then I share resources with the Death Cafe community where we give each other book lists